Welcome to the Sports by Fry channel. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Fry and I am back talking round 17, everything AFL fantasy wise. Huge week. Lots of coaches were very lucky, very high scores from a large number of players. Saw some pretty massive point totals out there. I was pretty lucky, scored over 2-3, season high for me, so I'm not going to be complaining at all. Had 3 blokes in my side score 150, but there were definitely some dudes in there who kind of weighed down the rest of my superstars. So let me dig into how the large fries and Coke unfolded this weekend. 2-3-1-4, very nice. I was in the top 13,000, but I only moved up, I think it was like 500, 600 spots in rank. It was hilarious. If you're listening on the podcast, this is the part of the episode where I usually reveal my team, because this is also a YouTube video, so if you want to interactively check out my team, then you can hit up YouTube to check that out. Defense was pretty good. I ended up locking in Laird's VC score on Thursday night of 122, so that was effectively my captain score. Whitfield was enormous. Luke Ryan did very well to redeem himself after 2 crappy scores. He's still probably going to go in the next week or 2, but held his spot for now. Cade Simpson and Yoey's 70s were a little bit of a worry, and just quietly, I'm a little bit concerned about Simpson's health, but he should be better next week, fingers crossed. Next up, what have we got in the midfield? A couple of other big scores. Like I said in my article this week, I was lucky enough to actually have the top 4 scorers. So I also had Mitchell, Dangerfield and Zachy Merritt. So it was very nice to see a couple of massive scores on my team sheet. A few other people let me down. Neil Gibbs and Sidebottom was tagged by Hutchings. Hopefully they can be a bit better. Neil's another one who's potentially on the block. I got Sire's score instead of Giro's, my emergency, which kind of sucked considering he suffered a cork and was out for pretty much the second half, but so be it. Dame Beams, Jeff in the rucks, solid, did their job. I'm expecting big things from these guys in the next couple of weeks. I reckon they're going to be enormous. In the forward line, which has really been my toughest position to nail all year, everyone was pretty good. Guelphy doesn't usually score 90, but Mickey Walters doesn't usually score 60, so if you were to flip those 2 scores, then everything would be pretty standard. I really need to start chasing the likes of Westhoff and Devon Smith. Lucky I've got Danger, so I can put him back in there, but yeah, I need to start looking at getting some superstar forwards in. I don't think I'll be doing it this week, though, with my 2 trades. Got a little bit of money to play with, but yeah, effectively, that's how the large fries and Coke went. So yes, even I benefited from some of those huge scores. Scored 2-3 plus. Didn't move up as much as I would have liked to in the ranking, but still 6 weeks to go. I can do it. Nothing's impossible. A couple of tribunal things. There wasn't a lot to report. Way back on Thursday night, feels like an eternity ago. Tex Walker, remember he chipped Zach Tui. Only got offered a week for that, surprisingly, but yeah, he's set to miss some time. The other bloke, Ryan Nyhouse, probably isn't a fantasy relevant dude. He's been referred straight to the tribunal, but the bloke that he tackled, Robbie Gray, is definitely relevant. A lot of people still have Gray in their side, and now that he's dipped under 500k, they're going to be stuck with what to do. But yes, Robbie Gray's nasty concussion should see him miss next week at least, maybe the week after, so he's a must trade. Sticking with injuries, just quickly, Paddy Ryder, I think it was a hip flexor that he's twanged, so he's out for a couple of weeks. Nick Nat, unfortunately, it is an ACL or a complete knee recon that he needs, so he's out for the year. So if you own one of those 2 ruckmen, then especially in draft, there might be time to look for a late season trade or a waiver wire option. Swans veteran Josh Kennedy hasn't really looked himself all year. Hurt his back in an attempted tackle this week and scored pretty bad, so if you have him in draft or a former classic, you could probably ditch him. Another ruckman who I skipped over was Matty Cruiser. Suffered elevated heart rate, I think it was. That was the diagnosis. So went off in the first quarter, and then yeah, after half time was officially ruled out. So hopefully he's okay. But again, if he's out, then he hasn't really delivered. He's been a bit injury prone this year, so make a move there if you have to. Touching on the reserves very quickly, Braden Fiorini and Michael Barlow dominated for the Suns 2s, so they should both come back into the senior side. No idea what Gold Coast's doing this year though, so there are no certainties to come back in, but they should, given their numbers in the reserves. Out west, Dom Sheed dominated for the Eagles Rezzies and should be a cakewalk to go straight back into the side, probably for Venables. Harley Bennell was pretty good, 19 touches as he tries to build back to a return, as well as Dan Pearce had a big game for Peel Thunder. In the SA NFL, Patrick Wilson was the Crows' best, and Gove, I think it's Gove, Jack Trengove from the Power, he was probably their best player, so those two dudes could get back into the side. Brett Deledio was on fire for the Giants reserves and could earn himself a reprieve, as well as Sam Lloyd, who had a massive 150 plus for the Tiggies. But Nathan Freeman, the bloke that everyone wants in after years of heartbreak, had another 25 touches, nice big ton, 100 flat, so he could be coming back in or into sides soon, so watch Thursday night with a lot of excitement because it could finally be the week that he's named for St Kilda. Okay, I'm mixing things up a little bit. Instead of doing +3 and -3, I'm going to start doing something a little different. I've been keeping a rank of who has been getting +3, +2, +1, etc. each week, and who's been getting -3, 2 and 1. So I've got a bit of MVP rankings that I'll release probably on Thursday around the time Jake and I do our trade video, but I'm mixing it up from now on for the rest of this season at least. I'm going to be doing Fry's favourite 5. So the best honour you can get is a +5 for the best score of the weekend. Not necessarily the best score, just the best performance, I should say. So this week, the bloke who got a +5 wasn't necessarily the highest fantasy scorer. And of course, the same can be said for the bad eggs in Fry's frustrating 5. So -5 again translates to the worst performance of the weekend. So again, I'll release the updated rankings on Thursday night, but yeah, this will be very interesting to see if anyone moves a little bit over the last 6 weeks. So, this has already been a big episode, so I don't want to take too much more of your time. Patrick Dangerfield is my +5. Tom Mitchell a little bit unlucky, but Dangerfield deserves it just based on the fact that we really needed a big score from Danger. A lot of people, and some coaches might have even done it this week, were looking at trading him out. Now that he's got new DPP, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Now that he's got DPP as a forward, he offers huge upside. So well done, Paddy. The man who scored 6 points more than him, Tom Mitchell. A lot of people would have been scared off, myself included, from making him captain, and we all regretted it as soon as we saw him run out against the Lions. Massive score, should be good again for the rest of the year. Look, he's must-have property. He's the form player of the competition. A little bit frustrating, a couple of 80s and 90s, but hopefully he can turn them into 110s and 120s for the run home. +3, if it was any other week, Lachie Whitfield would be higher up on this list, but 3 scores of 150 unfortunately mean he just cracks into 3, although he looks like a must-have defender, top 6 for sure, so if you don't have him, get him in. +2, same thing can be said, another huge score, and just quietly, well done, Zach Merritt, because you've turned your form around. A lot of people weren't in as such, especially after the first half of the year, but 6 straight tons, whew, well done, Merritt. Lastly, +1, this could have gone to Jack Redden, but after McRae's monstrous score against the Demons, look, he looks like a fantasy gun. I wouldn't be trading him in right away. I'll talk a little bit about why later on in the video/podcast, but yeah, he's going to be must-have property by the end of the year. Star. Frustrating 5s in a high-scoring week. A couple of people who scored pretty decently are going to find themselves on the end of some negatives. No one was more disappointing than Brodie Grundy. A couple of people flagged that the Eagles game could be a bit of a worry for him, but a season-low 68. The first time since round 1 that he's dropped under 100. But Grundy will be better against Goldstein next week. Won't be a huge score, but I should expect him to go pretty solid. I reckon he'll get about a 111. -4 goes to his teammate, Steele Sidebottom, who was shut down by Mark Hutchings. Not a lot else to say, really. He'll be better again next week, much like Grundy. Don't look into it too much, but we need more Steele. -3 goes to a Sydney Swan, Luke Parker. He's a bit disappointing. We thought that he could be a real 110, 120 player, but he's bounced between 110, 80 and 50, and too many of those scores have been towards the 50 and 80 mark. So for owners, this might be the last straw. I think there's plenty of other value out there, so get rid of him while you can. -2 this week, like I said, a bit harsh, but considering the high scores around the grounds, Elliot Yeo, we needed more out of arguably the premier defender in fantasy, so 76, especially against Collingwood. Will not cut it. Last but not least, again, a little bit unlucky, and I could probably have searched a little bit harder and found someone else, but Josh Kelly, Second straight score under 100, and a lot of people would have traded him in 2 weeks ago, thinking he was must-have property. But yeah, Kelly, you need a lift, mate. 88 isn't good enough. Fingers crossed he can return to form next week. And yeah, it's not a pattern that he's starting to develop, but yeah, -1 is fair enough for an 88. We need more. Before I dive into more of the numbers from round 17, let me talk a little bit about some of the DPPs. So round 18 means we got our third and final batch of new dual positioners. There wasn't really a lot to talk about though. Patrick Dangerfield was the obvious one. We debated a lot, throughout the season whether he was going to get mid-forward status, but finally, apparently it was a perfect split down the middle. So now he's a forward as well as a midfielder. Huge for coaches that do have him, and of course makes him a big trade target. Probably a lock for a top 6 forward. So if you don't already have Dangerfield, then he'll very quickly come into your trade plans. Aside from that, there wasn't really a lot else that mattered. There were a few rookies and interesting cash cows that gained an extra position. Guys like Brody Myercheck, Quinton Narkle and Stefan Giro all gained forward status, which is a bonus. I own 2 of the 3, so most coaches out there would have some form of those 3, so that's kind of cool, a handy link maybe. Along with a couple of other dudes, Ed Richards gained midfielder status and Michael Apnis gained a ruck. So probably a few less coaches have those 2, but with the exception of those roughly half a dozen guys, there wasn't really a lot to talk about dual positioners. Okie dokie, noteworthy numbers. Jack McRae still has the highest break-even in the comp at 161. So I wouldn't look at getting him in just yet. He'll be right for the picking in a few weeks. After their bad scores, the players that I've already mentioned as well, Brody Grundy, Steele Sidebottom and Josh Kelly, all 3 of them are set to go down a little bit in price. So if you're looking at trading one of them in, wait on because their price will go down. On the rookie front, a pair of defenders, Colin O'Royden from the Swans and Alex Morgan, a bit surprisingly, from the Roos. They offer the most upside at the moment with very low negative break-evens. The 3 blokes that we've been talking about for a few weeks, Braden Sire, Quinton Narkle and Brad Lynch from the Dogs are also fine options. I'd be a little bit cautious about trading in Sire if you don't have him already, because with his corked quad he might miss a little bit of time. But yeah, those 5 dudes that I mentioned, all good value. When it comes to form though, no one is better than Tom Mitchell right now. He's a shade under 150 in his last 3 weeks, but he's an absolute gun. Get him into your side. His score is a little bit boosted by that huge 190, but doesn't matter. He's good for 140 any week, so I would be getting him in if you don't have him for some stupid reason. Second on the list, Andrew Gaff. You could almost say Mitchell's 1A and Gaff's 1B. Doesn't look like, no matter who the Eagles are playing, Gaff's going to find trouble scoring. A lot of negatives in there. Let me try and reword that. Gaff's going to score no matter who they're playing, so get him in. Zach Merritt deserves a shout out, but if you're looking for an option in another line, you could probably look for Brayshaw in defence. He's in my trade plans in the next few weeks and could be the #1 defender by the time the season's done and dusted. In the rucks, Maximus Gawn. Now that Grundy's had a little bit of a blimp, I think Gawn is the form ruckman at the moment, and another favouring fixture should see another big score this week. And finally, in the forward line, again, 1A, 1B almost. You could go Westhoff or Devon Smith. But I think Devon Smith, just on form and numbers, is a little bit ahead. But if I was picking, I'd just go for Westhoff. Quickfire trades, like I've talked about, Mitchell and Gaff, if you don't have them, you need to get them in. But there's plenty of value to be had, especially in the midfield this week. You could look at trading in Matty Crouch, who's priced at around 670 from memory. He's played his way back into some form. But even cheaper still, under 600k mark, you could trade in Rory Sloane, who, after signing for 5 years, might just play awesome to end the season now that the contract's not weighing on his mind. Not out of the question. Dustin Martin is another one. Couple of big scores, 114 against the Crows, and then from memory a 91 last week against the Giants. Makes him an option. And Luke Shuey from the Eagles, priced at about 550 grand, is probably going to be the most traded in player this week. Doesn't seem like anyone's going to slow down the Eagles' mids, and the Bulldogs won't be doing it this week. So you could look at trading in one of those guys. Again, from the rookie front, those 5 dudes who I've already mentioned are probably your go-tos. I still rate Sire just over Narkle slightly. But of course, if one of them's named and one of them's not, and one of them's dropped, etc., that changes things. And I have O'Royden ranked just over Alex Morgan in defence. So if you're looking at trading in rookie and making money, you could definitely look at one of those 5 dudes. Trade outs, I don't think we should overreact and trade out our premium. So Josh Kelly, who I talked about, is probably right on the edge of the line. If you've had another player, say they've scored similar to Kelly for the last 2 weeks and they've dished up a 3rd straight crappy score, maybe Ed Kerno fits this bill, then that's probably when you trade them out. But if someone like Sidebottom had an off week, or Gibbs, who's also in my side, if they score bad, then, pump the brakes a little bit. We do want excellence out of our superstars at this time of the year, but yeah, don't overreact after 1 or maybe even 2 bad weeks. As the season nears an end, there's plenty of rookies that we can cull. Joel Smith, who's not playing at the moment from the Ds, is probably the number 1 bloke I'd get rid of. And with maybe Nathan Freeman named, there could be a perfect move for you. Otherwise, it's probably time for a lot of coaches where you're getting rid of that last player on your field. So Fritsch, might be time for him to go, another 77 on the weekend. Duday, similar boat. Both of them have scored really well and have been great cash cows, but it's time to go. You've done your job, thank you boys, but we need an uber premium in that spot. And Matty Guelphy is probably the last bloke who a lot of people might have on his field with that handy DPP. So yeah, trade out those rookies and get a star in. Just quickly looking ahead to next week, I've got a couple of interesting moves in the works. Now, when I released my article and was talking about on Twitter, I was planning on going Lachie Neale down to maybe Dusty to try and make some money, as well as doing another downgrade, or even Shuey, doing another downgrade with Rice down to O'Royden. But I think that Rice-O'Royden move might stay the same, or I might even get rid of Lachie Neale to try and bring in a big dog like Andrew Gaff. So those are what my trades are looking like at the moment. Team selection will probably dictate a bit, and I might even bring in Nate Freeman if he's named for my last, or one of my bench spots. But that is another round wrapped up. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up. Feel free to leave any comments or questions that you have. The same can be said with Twitter. You can hit me up at sportsbyfry, or also find me at AlexFry_6. I'm pretty sure that's my Twitter handle. If you can't find me, then check out the Sports by Fry one. That's an easy place to find me. Also, if you're listening on the podcast, feel free to leave a rating and review to bump us up the rankings. But otherwise, good luck in round 18. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace.